BookTok has declared war on Kallmekris. Recently, she made a video talking about books trending on BookTok.
Ever wonder why your sweet, innocent friend is suddenly blushing at her Kindle?
I have read the dirtiest things.
Romantasy books that are spice on spice on spice on spice.
Sometimes all you need is a seriously good steamy book.
These books are going to make you sweat in places you didn't know you could sweat.
But she said a few things in the video that upset a lot of people. So much so, people made their own videos with counter arguments.
In the way that people talk about children and the way that people disregard and also weaponize children. Like,
say so is so beyond belief.
Today we're going to dissect this video to find out why it's got so many people upset, so that you can decide for yourself if Kallmekris is in the wrong. But you won't believe what she did to this video because of the response she got. And when I say response, we need a moment to read some of these comments because they are unreal. No judgment. Whoever enjoys these books needs therapy. Oof, some direct quotes. I'm a horror reader and don't read smut, but I also would never judge someone for reading whatever they want. At least people are reading. To which Chris replied, 100%. I didn't do that. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but yeah, whatever. Women should be able to read whatever they want to without being shamed for it. Agreed, that's why I didn't. We're starting to see the unraveling of Chris's composure here. Why read a smut book knowing you don't like smut? Logic is out the door. I do, not these ones. Just a simple review, bud. I like how her frustration is slowly becoming more obvious the more comments she reads. Touch grass, I'm not judging. 'Twas an obvious joke, my love. I make jokes for a living. If you don't enjoy comedy, you don't have to watch vids. With some emojis to soften the blow. And now my favorite, nobody complains about movies having these scenes, but they complain when books have them. Be effing for real. Wow. And Chris here takes the bait that led to hate, freedom of speech, and it's a review. Have you ever read or watched a review before? Okay, the frustration is real. I don't know if you've made a video this long before. I believe this one was 40 minutes long, well edited, talking about how you feel, and then just getting crapped on over and over and over again in the comments by your subscribers. I'm sure that feeling is infuriating. But let's see if these comments have any merit. Let's take a look at the video and find out what exactly she said. Now, just in case someone isn't necessarily familiar with the smut genre, this should be a good indicator of what it's about.
This when the main character is sold to a high lord across the kingdom, and to assert his authority, he's like, you're gonna have to ride naked all the way to my kingdom.
My words to describe it and to convince you is everybody loves when a sailor comes home.
Like boom, 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 sauce, 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 sausage.
Wow, yeah, it's gonna be that kind of video today. You've been warned, you've gotten the heads up. Now, before Chris jumped into her hot takes, she said this at the beginning of the video.
And full disclaimer, this is not meant to shame or offend anybody that enjoys these books. It's your life, not mine. And I, for one, did read the books I'm about to talk about, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy a little saucy fling here and there, a little saucy fictional fling here and there.
I think somewhere in the back of Chris's mind, she thought she'd get some kind of mixed response in this video, but it's obvious she was not anticipating the responses she did get. Now, the first book she chose was 50 Shades of Grey, which, to be honest, she kind of got roasted in the comments about picking such a generic book for the smut enthusiasts, especially when she called it a gateway drug into smut. In fact, here's a YouTuber commenting on that exact thing.
So saying that it is like this gateway drug, there's nothing wrong with saying that, I guess, but it is an unsubstantiated claim. I do not think that there is any way that you can prove that 50 Shades of Grey is how most people who read smut-heavy books got into smut.
Okay, yeah, I get it. But honestly, if you were to ask people on the street, what is a smut book that comes to mind, most of them would say either Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey. All right, I'm sure I'll get a couple of comments about Twilight not technically being a smut book, but we're referring to common people. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing about this video. A casual enthusiast versus a diehard fan. In the back of your mind, I want you to think about something that you are a diehard fan of and what the average person would say about that. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind, but I want to give more context to why people feel some type of way about this video. These are Chris's comments on the quote-unquote smuttiest book that she could find. The book is called 24690, which is an inmate's number. It's got everything from slavery and kind of an enemies to lover type storyline. Not for the faint of heart.
But this book was just quite literally torture smut with like a sprinkle of illegal forbidden love plot, and I need to bathe in bleach after reading it. It's just, I can't really comprehend how people can praise this book at all, and honestly it kind of just concerns me more than anything.
Okay, this is really interesting. Should you shame someone over reading a crazy ass book? I think if you were in favor of yes, you'd probably give the argument of changing the subject matter a little bit. For example, if someone was into reading books about how the Taliban makes bombs, okay, and they're like, no, I just get enjoyment out of this is purely, I'm just enjoying this. You're probably gonna have some questions about the person. You're probably gonna be a little concerned, kind of wondering what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like, these are some of the valid points that people would have. But at the same time, if you were against this, how would this be any different from watching TV shows or movies like Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, or some of the more intense shows out there? Just because you watch Breaking Bad doesn't mean you're trying to sell to people in New Mexico, right? Just because you watch Game of Thrones doesn't mean you want to X, Y, and Z. You guys get the picture. And Chris even gives the counter argument for this in the video. But to be honest, I don't think it came across in the best way.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate and go to the other side of the coin, and I understand that if women and men read and consume these types of books, they just become really desensitized, and it's just kind of natural to keep wanting more and more steamier or like borderline disturbing material to excite you. And it's just a very human characteristic, a characteristic many of us share, either with spicy books, true crime, for example, horror movies, corn sites, or whatever. And that's why when I say I don't want to shame people, I really do mean it. This isn't meant to shame anyone,
Boom, okay, that sounds valid. But then she adds this on the end.
But I think it's just about having the wherewithal to know when it's beginning to be too much and just not letting it rot your brain and affect your outside life.
And there we have it. There is someone out there that was listening until she said that. I almost wish for this video it would give timestamps for every comment on where in the video they decided to write down what they were thinking. I think a lot of comments would have been written right there. But here we have the final nail in the coffin. This is what Chris adds to the end of this thought.
I get it. It's interesting. People are interesting animals, and it just kind of goes along with the whole understanding people in psychology and all that kind of stuff. So that's about it.
I don't know, Chris. I don't know about saying that after such a sensitive topic. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone watching this that's really into smut and was fuming as she was saying this, and then hearing that last sentence.
People are interesting animals.
Almost feeling as if I'm this creature in a test tube that's interesting for her to observe. She's kind of the scientist, right? It's very, I don't want to say elitist, but obviously she didn't mean it to come across that way, but I think a lot of people interpreted that as almost like, wow, these books suck, I'm better than you. If you like these books, you need to go to therapy. But I find that very interesting, right? Like something along those lines. But wait, it gets a little bit worse because it involves children. And it starts with a smut book called Icebreaker.
But some women on TikTok have anointed this as the ultimate sports romance. But it's not just women that are saying this, it's children. Children are reading this book. But it doesn't surprise me, given that the cover looks as innocent as fucking Charlotte's Web. Like, I don't understand why or for what purpose this cover looks like that, because it does look like just like a Judy Blume book, but it's quite literally just straight up corn.
To the average person, yeah, they honestly kind of look really similar, but some members of BookTok disagree.
These two covers do not look the same. They just do not. And to say that they do is really harmful. We have a obvious girl in Charlotte's Web with a bunch of animals. And then on the other cover, we have two grown adults with one that has a jersey that says university. It's the shorthand for University something Maple Hills, University gives you an idea that these people are over 18, so they're not the same. And it's just this demonization overall of cartoons and animation and that type of style that society has labeled just for children when it's not just for children.
Oof, this one's interesting because it involves kids. I mean, imagine a kid at a library looking at these two books on display. Would they be likely to pick up the smut book thinking it's a kid's book? I don't know. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments.
If you tell me those look like 10-year-olds on a book cover, you're a liar. Or you don't know what a 10-year-old looks like. I'm concerned regardless. People are so like, you don't see any similarities with the art style. I refuse to believe we still need to keep like having this conversation that just because something is like a cute illustration style, that it automatically means it's for children exclusively.
That is a valid point. An animation style doesn't automatically mean it's for kids. And this YouTuber made a really good point that there are some adult cartoons.
There are so many forms of adult entertainment that feature illustration or cartoon styles that are similar to what you could find on a children's network. That doesn't mean the presence of a cartoon makes it a children's program. An art style is an art style. An art style doesn't automatically communicate the contents of an entire piece of media.
That is a really good point. But for some reason, I feel when it comes to books, it might be a little different. Maybe that's just me. Judging by her bookcase in the background, she is an expert on adult fiction. Okay. In fact, maybe the covers are the reasons why some of these kids end up having these books. And it's probably not even their fault. Think of a shopkeeper or a librarian trying to put these books in the right place.
But it has literally been found in the children's sections of libraries. I can't even believe it.
What's your friend reading?
Icebreaker.
And how old is she?
Yikes, 10 years old reading a smut book. To give more context, this book itself is mostly just corn, as she said.
But it's quite literally just straight up corn.
That's extremely bad, and I'm sure most people would agree. However, this is what this one YouTuber had as a response.
He goes on to say that it has been found in the children's sections of libraries. That is simply untrue. And then she shows this screenshot for proof that it is. And it's been placed in the wrong section of a Costco book table. Costco employees are not librarians. They don't have the skills to determine this. So Costco isn't even a bookseller. It is not being found in libraries' children's sections, and to say so is so beyond belief. I cannot believe that you said this and then did not edit it out once you realized you could not find any proof that that is true, because it's not true. It is not in kids' sections of libraries. That's misinformation, and that is fuel for book banners.
Oh, wow. Strong words. I do think this YouTuber makes a really good point on the onus of the correct book placement being on the librarian. But when it comes to something like Costco, that's a little bit more sketchy. However, this YouTuber is what I consider to be a book expert. They've seen the cover of thousands of books and are able to quickly tell the difference. However, with a kid, I feel like it might be a little bit more challenging. But it's because of the accumulation of these two main things, preference, shaming, I don't want to say the K word, as well as this kid's argument. And I think she sums it up pretty well right here.
Do you think that it is kind of antithetical to be like, I'm not shaming you for reading what you're reading, while also making jokes aimed at the readers? It is different when you read books and you criticize the contents of it, like the actions that the characters take and the progression of the story. That is different than being like, I think you need therapy if you read this.
Now, these two YouTubers made great videos, but what ended up happening to the original? I have a YouTube tool that allows you to see when creators change their thumbnails and titles, and I think it tells a really interesting story that will help explain what happened to this video. Initially, she started with this thumbnail, which is kind of clowning on the audience. Like, look how excited these girls are for these books. This is then paired with the title, Viral Smut Book TikTok is so gross. But then a day later, the title was changed to "These viral TikTok smut books are really gross." This title is not as aggressive as the last one. And then as comments were pouring in, she then changed the title to "BookTok is wild," followed by this thumbnail, which doesn't have the crazy looking girls in the thumbnail. Now, some of the comments picked up on this, saying, "You changed the name in the video like 5 times. She then responded, "I do that for every video I post and thumbnails, 3 to 6 times every time. YouTube best practices. Your video still sucks." As a YouTuber that does this, she is right. However, I find it interesting that the titles got less abrasive as time went on. I think as she was reading the comments as the days went on, she then realized the video kind of hit too hard, so she tried to lessen it by changing the title and thumbnail, but at that point it was a little too late. And we know this because she ended up pinning her own comment. Feel free to pause and read if you want to get the full story. But as everything crescendoed into one point, she decided to unlist the video. Yes, she took it down from her channel. But if you want access to this video, feel free to find it in the description. I also have the other 2 critique videos in there as well. If you want to watch another book talk video, check out this one where they beef with bike talk.